Hey, you've stumbled onto a story. She didn't say goodbye. Just the soft click of the door and the lingering scent of her perfume, fading like a memory she no longer wanted to keep. I was in the kitchen, stirring a pot of mac and cheese I didn't even want when my phone buzzed. A friend needs me. Be home soon. No name, no explanation, just those words hanging there. I didn't move, didn't breathe. I just replied, 5 words sharp and hollow. Sure, say hi to Chris. Then I set the phone down. Not because I was fine, but because I was done pretending. I'm not dramatic. I don't slam doors or shatter plates. I alphabetize spice racks and wear socks to bed. My name's Marvin, and I'm not bold. I said I love you first and waited 3 days for her to echo it back. But Chris wasn't just a name. He was the name, the one that lingered too long in her stories, the one she smiled about without realizing, the one I found hidden under Carla books in her contacts months ago. She thought I hadn't noticed, and maybe I hadn't, not until she stopped asking if I wanted coffee. Not until she started coming home later, laughing under the shower like someone had sent her secrets meant only for her. Maybe it was insecurity. Maybe I was overthinking. Or maybe she really was helping a friend. But when I typed his name and saw the receipt, my stomach sank. Silence followed. Then calls, 12 of them. No voicemails. The kind of panic that doesn't come from running late, but from being caught. I didn't pick up. I just sat there, clutching a couch pillow as if it could explain everything. At 9:14 p.m., the doorknob rattled. Turned slowly, guilt steering its way inside. She walked in, out of breath, pale, her jacket still on like she couldn't decide whether to stay or flee. "Marv," she whispered, almost soundless. I didn't answer. I pointed to the hallway instead. There, pinned where her vision board used to be, was a printout of her location history. 3 Thursdays in a row, mapped neatly to a cheap motel outside town. Each timestamp precise. Beneath it, a selfie. Not one she sent me. One I found linked to a burner account Chris had used to comment on her gym photo. She wore the same hoodie she claimed she'd left at work. She froze, wide-eyed like a deer caught in headlights, knowing this was the end of the road. I stood up. My voice didn't waver. "I didn't need proof," I said. "I just needed you to admit it." Her lips parted, but no words came. For once, she didn't have a script ready. Fiona stood there, time holding her still. I'd never seen her at a loss for words. This was the woman who always had a witty reply, a perfectly crafted excuse tucked beside her expensive lip gloss. The one I pretended not to notice cost a fortune. But now, her lips parted once, then closed, and stayed sealed shut. The air between us felt sharp, like shards of glass slicing through every attempt to breathe. I didn't shout. I didn't demand answers. I think that unnerved her most of all. Instead, I turned and walked into the kitchen, poured myself the same flat soda I'd opened hours ago, and took a sip as if it weren't poisoned with disappointment. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw her trembling, clutching her purse like it held her last shred of self-respect. Finally, she stepped inside, closed the door behind her, and whispered, "You don't get it. It wasn't what it looked like." I laughed, actually laughed, and I hated myself for it because nothing about this was funny. But something inside me fractured when she spoke those words, like they were ripped from a cheap script. "You're right," I said, my voice low and steady. "I don't understand. Enlighten me. What exactly was it?" She moved closer, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor, a sound I used to adore. Now it made my stomach churn. "I went to see Haley," she began, but I cut her off. "Stop. If you're going to lie, at least make it believable. A friend needing company doesn't turn into an impromptu motel visit. Her face crumbled. She looked like someone who'd finally realized the fire she'd been playing with wasn't imaginary. It was real, and it was consuming everything. She rushed to the printouts taped on the wall, tearing them down as if destroying the evidence could undo reality. Turning to me, she raised her voice for the first time. "You invaded my privacy. You went through my things." I nodded slowly. "Yes, Fiona, I went through your data, not your soul. You gave that away weeks ago." She hesitated, searching for another excuse, but her eyes betrayed her. She knew she'd already lost. I walked past her, down the hallway to our bedroom, no, my bedroom now, and grabbed the small overnight bag I'd packed 2 days earlier. I don't know why I packed it. Something in me just knew. I zipped it shut, calm and deliberate, almost robotic. She followed me, standing in the doorway like a frightened child. "You're leaving?" I didn't even glance at her. "No, Fiona. I left the moment I sent that text. This is just me catching up." That's when she broke. Really broke. Tears streamed down her face, gasping sobs filling the room. She collapsed onto the bedroom floor, knees hitting the ground. Maybe for the first time, she understood I wasn't bluffing. The quiet husband she assumed would tolerate anything, he wasn't tolerating any more. I stepped around her, grabbed my keys, and paused at the door. "You know what the worst part is? For a moment, I started believing you again. Stupid, huh?" She didn't answer. For once, the silence was hers to carry. The image of the motel parking lot lingered in my mind, vivid and unrelenting. Even as I pulled away from the house, the location logs revealed more than just places. They showed times. Every Thursday night for 3 weeks, Fiona was there. Same time, same spot, same man. And while she spun her web of deceit, I was at home, reheating dinner and asking if she wanted almond or oat milk in her coffee the next morning. Clueless. I didn't know where I was headed. I just knew I couldn't stay. My hands clutched the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. My heart wasn't pounding, it was sinking. That's the only way to describe it. Something inside me had collapsed, slow and agonizing. 20 minutes later, I found myself parked at a gas station on Route 8. I sat there, headlights off, engine idling, watching people come and go. A couple laughing over drinks, a man struggling with his car, life moving forward for everyone but me. Meanwhile, my world had crumbled. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just sat there, breathing through the silence. No one talks about this part of betrayal. It doesn't always strike like lightning. Sometimes it creeps in like fog, suffocating you quietly when no one's around to witness your pain. Eventually, I drove back. I wasn't ready to confront her. I wasn't ready to argue. I just needed my laptop, my work bag, and the charger she always borrowed and forgot to return. That's all. When I walked in, the house was dark. No yelling, no pleading, just silence. Except for one thing. On the kitchen counter sat a sticky note, her handwriting shaky as if her hand trembled while writing. It read, "I messed up. Please talk to me. I'm not ready to lose you." Beneath it, her phone lay unlocked, screen glowing, a message thread still open. Chris again. This time, no emojis, just, "He knows. I think it's over." No panic, no remorse, just a statement. She hadn't erased anything. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was carelessness. Or maybe she thought I'd see it and feel sorry for her. But I didn't. I picked up the phone, stared at the message, and for the first time in my life, replied, pretending to be her. "It is." Then I set the phone back exactly where I found it. I gathered my things calmly. No rushing, no slamming drawers. I didn't check if she was still there because in every way that mattered, she wasn't. As I closed the door behind me, I realized something strange. I wasn't devastated. I wasn't destroyed. I was simply empty. And for now, that felt sufficient. I didn't book a hotel that night. I drove to my cousin Leonard's place, the one person who never asks questions, just opens doors. He handed me a blanket, gestured toward the couch, and left a cold bottle of root beer on the coffee table. That was his way of saying, "I've got you. No lectures, no judgment, just space." The couch wasn't comfortable, but I didn't need comfort. I needed distance, room to think, or maybe room not to think at all. But my mind wouldn't settle. I lay there, eyes wide open for hours, watching the ceiling fan turn in slow, creaking circles above me. It's not what you think, but it was. Things got worse around 3 a.m. when my phone lit up again. I'd silenced her earlier, but this time it came from an unknown number. I hesitated before opening it. A simple message appeared. "Heard what happened. You okay?" No name, just that. My pulse quickened as I replied cautiously, "Who is this?" 2 dots blinked, disappeared, then returned. "It's Macy. I work with Fiona. I shouldn't be texting you, but I thought you deserved to know everything." I sat upright. Macy? I'd met her maybe twice. She seemed pleasant, reserved. Fiona once mentioned she was overly curious. Now I understood why. I typed back, "Know what exactly?" This time she sent a voice memo. I paused, then pressed play. Her voice trembled. "She's been seeing Chris for months. Everyone at work knows. They don't even try to hide it anymore. She said she'd tell you eventually, but she joked that you'd never leave, that you'd forgive anything. I'm sorry, Marv. I know this is awful, but I couldn't stay quiet any longer." I replayed it 3 times. Each listen hit harder than the last. She joked I'd never leave, as if my loyalty was some kind of punchline to her private joke. The hurt morphed into something else. Not anger, but determination. I stared at my phone, scrolling through old photos. Our wedding day, the blurry one from our first camping trip where we burned the marshmallows but still laughed. And then the photo I almost deleted, the one of her on the porch, hand resting lightly on my shoulder, but her gaze fixed on something beyond the frame. I zoomed in. Her eyes gleamed, not because of me or the moment, but likely because of whatever secret gave her the confidence to assume I'd always stay. I didn't cry. I thought I might, but I was past that now. I wasn't going to beg for answers or scream into the void. I wouldn't shatter picture frames or lose myself in despair. I'd been silent too long already, but this silence, this kind, I could wield. That morning, I sent Fiona one message, just one. "Don't call, don't text, I'll be in touch." She responded instantly. "Please, can we talk? I'm so sorry." I didn't answer. Talking wasn't part of the plan. Not yet. First, I needed clarity. Not for revenge. Not to wound her back. That wasn't me. But if I was walking away from a marriage where I gave everything, I wanted her to see precisely what she had lost and who she had become. Then she sent something that changed everything. A photo. One I wasn't meant to see. It arrived while I sat staring blankly at Leonard's ceiling, trying to trace where it all unraveled. Her name flashed across my screen again, though by now I felt numb to its presence. This time it wasn't a message, but a single image file. No caption, no explanation, just a timestamp from 2 nights prior at 11:42 p.m. That was the night she claimed she'd fallen asleep at Haley's after too much wine. I opened it. It was a photo taken in a hotel mirror. She wore the same black hoodie she always kept in her car, the one I once assumed she used for gym sessions. But this wasn't the gym. In the picture, she held her phone in one hand and rested the other around someone's waist. A man's hand gripped her hip. Only part of his face was visible, but I knew the beard instantly. It matched photos from an office group shot last year. Chris. This wasn't meant to be sent. Perhaps she'd intended to delete it, but tapped incorrectly. Or maybe she wanted to shatter me further. Maybe, deep down, she craved exposure, destruction. Regardless, she succeeded. I stared at the photo for what felt like eternity, not because of what she was doing, but because of how at ease she looked, relaxed, as if nothing about that moment was wrong, like she hadn't betrayed nearly a decade together and posed as proof. I didn't respond, not because I didn't want to, but because no words could capture the disgust rising within me. Instead, I locked my phone, placed it face down on the coffee table, and finally let myself unravel. Not loudly or dramatically, but quietly, as I always handled everything. A soft exhale, an untouched tear, a breath that wouldn't steady. The next morning, I took a screenshot of the photo, printed it at a pharmacy kiosk, and slipped it into an envelope. Then I drove home, not to confront, not to argue, but to return the silence she'd given me with interest. I left the envelope on the kitchen counter beside her unfinished almond milk latte, the kind she reheated instead of making fresh. No note, no dramatic flair, just the sealed truth waiting. Before leaving, I glanced at the life we'd built, or rather, its hollow remains. It didn't feel like home anymore, just walls and echoes. As I opened the door, I heard footsteps descending the stairs. "Marv, are you here?" Her voice trembled, not out of longing, but because she sensed change. I didn't reply, didn't even glance back. I stepped outside, closed the door, and for the first time in weeks, the air felt breathable. Sitting in my car, I waited. 3 minutes later, the door flung open. There she stood, wrapped in a robe, clutching the envelope, her face pale as though she'd seen a ghost. And perhaps she had. The version of me who endured everything? He was gone. I stayed away longer than planned. What began as a night on Leonard's couch stretched into 3. He didn't ask questions, just kept handing me spare keys and refilling my coffee before I could lift a finger. Sleep had become a stranger, my mind still tangled in the what-ifs I once clung to. But each morning, the storm in my chest softened. The ache of wanting to believe her wasn't gone, just quieter. On the 4th day, an unknown number called. I ignored it twice, then finally answered. It was Beth, my neighbor. Her voice wavered like she'd practiced every word. "Marvin, I don't want to interfere, but Fiona's been coming by. She knocked 3 times yesterday, again this morning. She's out there crying." I thanked her, told her not to worry, and ended the call. I wasn't angry about the knocking or even surprised. What shocked me was how little I wanted to see her. Once I'd have rushed home at the first sign of her pain. But that version of me was long gone. Still, I returned, not to reconcile, but to collect my things and face her one last time, searching for any trace of truth behind the act. When I arrived, she sat on the steps in a hoodie too big for her, one I used to wear on lazy Sundays. Her hair was wild, her face hollowed by sleepless nights. For a moment, I barely recognized her. She seemed smaller, like the weight of her lies had crushed her. She stood as I approached, eyes pleading. "Marv, can we talk?" I walked past her without a word. Inside, everything looked the same, yet felt foreign. The air was heavy, empty. She followed, hands shaking. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this. Chris, he didn't matter. He was nothing." I packed calmly, ignoring her need for drama. She wanted tears, shouts, anything to prove she still held power over me. But I gave her silence. "I ended it with him," she blurted. "The second you found out, I ended it." "Doesn't that mean something?" I zipped my bag shut and met her gaze. "Why did you only end it when I found out?" If it meant nothing, why did it last so long? She had no answer, only tears. I didn't flinch. I moved toward the door, pausing briefly as she whispered behind me, "Do you still love me?" I didn't turn around. I don't know who you are anymore, but the person I loved wouldn't have done this. Then I left. She didn't follow. I drove away without looking back, convinced it was over. Or so I thought, until 2 days later when an accidental email from HR at her job landed in my inbox. What I read unraveled everything I thought I knew about why she betrayed me. 2 days after I left for good, an email appeared in my inbox, meant for someone else. The subject line read, "Confidential HR policy breach," and it came from someone at Fiona's company. At first I assumed it was a mistake. We didn't share work contacts, and our lives were no longer intertwined professionally. But then I noticed it had been forwarded by accident from her personal email, which I still had access to through a shared folder we'd used last year to plan our anniversary trip. She'd never removed me. Curiosity got the better of me. I opened it. The email was from the HR director to Fiona's manager, detailing an internal complaint filed against her and another employee. A single sentence hit me hard. Several staff reported inappropriate behavior between Fiona W. and Chris T., including public displays of affection and misuse of company resources. So, it wasn't just an affair. It wasn't some fleeting lapse in judgment. It was a full-blown workplace scandal. She hadn't merely betrayed me privately. She was ruining her career while pretending I'd never find out. I scrolled further. There were interview transcripts. One coworker mentioned seeing them sneak out together during lunch breaks. Another recounted hearing Fiona say, "If Marv ever finds out, I'll tell him Chris is just helping me deal with stress at work." That line made me feel sick, not because it surprised me. By then, I'd already accepted the worst. No, what turned my stomach was how she'd rehearsed lies about me, framing me as weak and fragile while protecting her own image. Meanwhile, I'd spent months tiptoeing around her, asking if she was okay, trying to hold things together. I closed the laptop, leaned back, and let it all sink in. This wasn't just about marriage anymore. It was about integrity, or the complete lack of it. What chilled me most? In our final conversation, she hadn't mentioned any of this. Not the investigation, not the complaints, not even the risk of losing her job. To her, I was still the biggest threat in her life. But she was wrong. Later that evening, my phone rang again. Her number. I didn't answer, but this time she left a voicemail. Between shallow breaths and stifled sobs, she pleaded, "Marvin, please, I need your help. They're suspending me. Chris says he doesn't want anything to do with this anymore. I don't know what to do." I listened twice. Both times I felt nothing but clarity. For months, she'd made me feel insignificant, chipping away at my self-worth while building a fantasy on stolen time and broken trust. Now, with everything falling apart, she expected me to be her safety net. But I wasn't that person anymore. I opened my phone, found her contact, and hit block. Not out of anger or revenge, but because I finally understood. She wasn't confused, she was deliberate. And that was the end of my role in the plan. The day I blocked Fiona's number, I braced for emptiness, like sealing off the last door of a home I once cherished. But instead, I felt something unexpected: peace. Not the loud, explosive kind, but the quiet hum of relief when you stop waiting for someone to change. I moved into a modest apartment a few blocks from Leonard's. Nothing luxurious, just enough for me and the version of myself buried under years of compromises. Unpacking slowly, assembling furniture alone, making coffee exactly how I liked it. I wasn't proving anything to anyone anymore. I was simply living. The email about her work suspension turned into something bigger. 2 weeks later, Leonard sent me a link to local news, an internal ethics investigation. Fiona and Chris were both fired. He was married too, expecting a child. Just like that, her illusion shattered. She traded 9 years of stability for 2 months of secrecy, leaving both parts of her life in ruins. She tried reaching out through her sister, claiming she wanted closure, but I didn't respond. I didn't need an explanation. Her choice had been clear, protecting the lie over the person who would have forgiven her. Now, this was my choice. A few days ago, Beth, our neighbor, handed me an envelope Fiona left just in case. Out of curiosity, I opened it. Inside was a blurry photo of us on our first vacation, smiling at the beach. On the back, she'd written, "You were always better to me than I ever deserved." She was right, but I wasn't angry anymore. Now I'm rebuilding. I signed up for woodworking classes, started jogging again despite hating mornings, reconnected with friends, and spoke honestly with my mom. I sleep soundly now, no longer checking my phone at 3 a.m. hoping she'd return. If you've been the quiet one in a relationship, always forgiving, always sacrificing your peace to keep harmony, remember this: peace shouldn't come at the cost of your dignity. I'm not bitter, I'm grateful. Losing someone who never truly saw me became the moment I finally saw myself. Have you ever chosen peace over pain? Share your story below. We'd love to hear it. Your truth matters.